The next topic is, can your behavior be predicted? Who has like money management issues? Who's got money management issues? Somebody in debt that has money management issues? Everybody's like, your hands are up. All right, Ahmed, I'll do it with you, all right? Okay, so this is how you do it. This next activity, I designed this myself. So it's a little bit technical, but I'll show you how it's done. Inshallah ta'ala, I don't know if we'll have time for you guys to do it one-on-one, but we might do it later bi'idhnillah, when we have some extra time. Okay, so, or you know what? Why doesn't everybody just do it with me together? We'll all do it together. I'll do it with Ahmed, but you kind of like answer the questions in your own notebook as I go along. So this is money management. Money management. What I'm looking for is your pattern, right? I'm looking for what I call this phases, the phases that you go through. So with paychecks and what you do with it afterwards. So what's the first thing that you do when it comes to money? What's the first thing? And for yourself, what's the first thing with money? A person might start off by saying, I receive a paycheck. Or maybe they'll start off saying, I'm expecting my paycheck, or whatever it is. Or what's the first stage? Hold on, just with the you do what? When the paycheck comes in? Okay, so stage number 1 for Ahmed, and for you it might be something different. You want to write down yours. Expect what I'm going to earn, okay? Okay, so phase number 2, after that, then what happens? And for yourself, what happens after that first stage that you're starting in? Get your paycheck, okay? We're talking about money management here. Then what happens? After you get your paycheck, then what happens? What's that? You put it in cash in your pocket? Yeah. Hold on to it. Okay, hold on to it. So what is it for you guys as you're writing down? So your first step might be like here in this example, he's expecting what he's going to earn. Someone else might say, when it comes to money management, I look at my bank account and see how much is in there. People have different ways of how they go about things. His second step was, he gets his paycheck. What is it for you? So I might be looking at my bank account, and then all of a sudden, a check arrives in the mail. Or another check, and another check, another check. It might be different, right? People have different, we're diverging here, but this is yours, okay? After you hold on to it, then what happens? Okay, so you make a rough estimate. Rough estimate of how much to keep for my debt. And for you, what's the next stage for you guys? Write down when you're dealing with money, what's the next stage? At this point, I'm actually looking at a point where he's just going to go back to the beginning. And it's going to loop, right? So you might already start looping at a certain point. You've already looped, okay? Okay, so if you've looped, you can stop, but he doesn't seem like he's looped yet. So rough estimate of how much you need to keep for your debt, and then what happens? Buy whatever I need to buy. And then what happens? Do you run out of money at that point? Okay, so I buy whatever I need to buy, and then I start expecting what I need to earn. Okay. And then it loops. And it goes back to the beginning. Expecting what I'm going to earn. I get my paycheck. I hold on to it. When you hold on to it, what do you mean when you hold on to it? So you hold on to it in cash. Do they pay you in cash as well? And buy whatever you need to buy. Sometimes you run out. Have you kept how much you need for your debt? No, what I'm saying is like you estimate how much you need to keep for your debt. Does that actually get kept or does it get spent? Okay. And then you buy whatever you need to buy. Somebody else? Another one? Go ahead, brother. Yeah, let's do it. Hold on. Money management. Your name is brother? Isaiah. Okay, number one, how much you have in your bank. Okay. And then, and you might want to recheck what you guys did just so you weren't being influenced by what he said. So you want to write down what is your phases and how you deal with your money. Yeah. How much in bank? Yeah. Okay. When paycheck, I add it. Yeah. And then foresee what's coming up. Coming up until next paycheck. Okay. And then and then and then allocate what? Portion for savings. And then are you like at a low number or you're at a high number? Medium. Okay, so it's been working good for you, right? Alhamdulillah. Okay, and then probably then it'll start looping back at the front at there. Okay. Okay, so alhamdulillah actually cuz the past example, this example, they're actually good examples. I like to have someone that's like totally destroyed in their financial management. But I'm guessing if you made it here to this event, you got some good things happening there, inshallah ta'ala. One of the things that I've learned in this activity, if you'll notice that foresee what's coming up in the paycheck, and here it's also paycheck, and then it's expect what I want to, what I'm going to earn. Something that you see there, the pattern is, it's the paycheck to paycheck lifestyle, correct? Whereas the person makes the goal their paycheck and everything related to it's like spending up until that. The box or the bucket that they're dealing with is just how much that paycheck is. How many sources of income do they have? One. Right? So it's all coming from one direction. And everything, now you see why there's so much emotional attachment to these jobs. Because when you fire somebody, you're not, it's not like, go find some. They don't exist without this paycheck. That's why it's not a good thing to call your boss like a slave master, stuff like that. Your life is here. I'll show you another kind of like advanced of what you do with this after that. We're going to say when you have how much in the bank. I'm actually looking for someone that's like really bad in their management. Does someone have like a really horrible story of how they manage money? Really horrible story? Horrible, like terrible? Like you make money but you're like losing all of it? Yeah? He's like, yeah, that's me. Okay, go ahead. So what's your stage number one? Is what? Receive the paycheck. Okay. In cash or in the actual check? Give it to dad. In cash. And then? Yes. Okay, this is perfect. No, I was looking for something like this. Because this is more reflective of reality, okay? The other ones are too nice. I want to talk about the really nice ones. Okay, and stage number 5? And then? Okay. And so Do your parents know that it's like this rough? What would happen if you got married and you actually had a wife to take care of? Okay, definitely. But you guys saw an emotional thing just triggered right there, right? Okay. The money issue. Interesting how these things connect. Interesting. Okay, we'll do it with Ammar inshallah ta'ala. What's the question that goes through your mind? So now if you've written down like a good strategy, it phases it. And usually people don't, I don't think people lie on this. So it's not like, oh, you have to go deeper. I think just people, when they volunteer to share, it's usually the ones that are like have a really nice one that share. But so you want to answer this question as I'm doing it with Ammar. What's the question that's going through your mind at this stage number 1? And for yourself, whatever you put at stage number 1, what's the question that's going through your mind? Yes? What's the question that you're asking in your mind? Like when you're receiving your paycheck, like what's going through your mind? Are you like, oh, I'm so excited I'm getting my paycheck? Or is it, how much do my parents need? What's the question? How much do my parents need? Okay, so this is the question at this stage. How much do my parents need? And what's the emotion that you feel? But what's the emotion? You can be honest here. Okay, confusion. Confusion between taking care of your parents or being stingy kind of thing? Okay, you think they don't deserve it even because they mismanage it. They should have been at this event. Okay, so confusion, all right, so confusion. So you want to write down what's the question at each stage and what's the emotion. What's the question and what's the emotion? The emotion is confusion. So every time Ammar gets a paycheck, he's confused. Okay, then give it to dad in cash. What's the question that's going through your mind? Or so the question, yeah. Or maybe you're saying something like, does he deserve this or does he know what to do with it? What would it be for you? That's the confusion question, right? Or which is, how much do my parents need? That's what it is, right? Which is, do they know what to do with it? Okay, and then at this stage, when you give it to your dad in cash? Happiness. Okay, that's good. And you have a question or what's the statement in your mind? Okay, I've done well is the statement. I've done well. And then next stage, then it's gone. What's the emotion that you feel? Contentment. Okay. Do you guys see now a pattern's happening here? It's going up in happiness the more money you don't have. Contentment when the money is gone. That's an intense one, man. And the question that you're asking or the statement? How long does this last? But you feel contented. And you want it to last longer. Is that why you sabotage your money all the time? Yeah. How long is this going to last? And then your mom says, when's your next paycheck? Okay, that's great. Because you already gave them your paycheck, right? And now they're asking again, right? So frustration. And the question going through your mind is? When does she stop? When does she stop? That's right. Then it loops. Okay, so you've written it down for yourself. You've got the different stages. As I said, this one's more reflective of reality. The other ones, they're sweet and stuff like that. And alhamdulillah, they're working good. You can do this activity for multiple actually for anything related to money, which is your business. What's your strategy with business? What's your strategy with business investments? What's your strategy with, you have a new business idea? What's your strategy as an employee in your work? And you start saying, well, at work, I, enjoy getting a job. I show up for work. I'm very excited. Then I start to get unhealthy, drinking coffee and, skipping meals and stuff like that. Then fourth stage is I start hating my job because it's like the job's fault. And because this triggers a bell with me, right? And then fifth stage is I try telling people, I want to leave my job, and I start blaming my boss. Until you get fired or you quit, and then you go to a next job, and the first stage is I love my job, everything's great, and then you become unhealthy, and then right? And then you go through the same cycle. It's the same job. And by the way, this thing applies also for marriages. Usually when people get divorced, they're like, it's my wife's fault. I'll divorce her. And you know what? And then I'll find, the most beautifulest woman that will never challenge me on anything. The problem is that you're taking yourself into the next marriage, and your same pattern is applied to the next stage. And so you start running the same pattern again. And so you'll find that the person who's divorced once becomes divorced second time, third time, or fourth time, because they're just running the same pattern without really addressing it. Let's take this to the next step with Ammar. And that is the emotional intensity. On a scale of -5 to +5, what would you say this I've done well? What's the emotional intensity? So for yourself, what's your emotional intensity for each emotion? -5 to +5. When he said I've done well, this statement, the confusion, how much do my parents need? How intense is that emotion? Because it could be a positive emotion or a negative emotion. We're just looking at the intensity. On 0 to 5, what would it be? Okay, so is confusion negative or positive? How much do they need? How much do they really need? All right, but it's just kind of like a mild negative kind of thing. Okay, so let's just say it's like just a -2 for now. It's not a pleasurable thing, but not necessarily. So we'll go like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so -2. So we're starting off at -2. Then the next one is the happiness that you feel when you give your paycheck to your dad. Is that, what's the emotional intensity of that? 0 to 5. 4, and it's a positive 4 because you're happy there, so you've gone to 4. Okay, and then the third one, then it's gone. How long is this going to last, the contentment? What's the contentment is a positive emotion, correct? And 0 to 5? 2. How long is this going to last? At a 2. And you want to make a chart for you as well, whatever the emotionals are in the question. And then the fourth one, when your mom says, when's your next paycheck coming? And you feel frustration. 0 to 5? Okay, so -3. Okay, and then this is how the emotional intensity goes. It's just going up and down. So the reason that I charted it out like that is that you can see he's on a roller coaster with money, right? So now you can see it on the graph. It's like up and down. When he gets his paycheck, gives it to his parents, it's like it's going up. When, the money starts running out, they start asking again, he's back in the negative. The only way to get out of the negative for him, the only thing that he sees is to get a paycheck and give it to them again. And so he's on the cycle. I brought up the issue of getting married and what that would do in this, in this thing. It'd just take the roller coaster and it'd go off on a tangent. Who gets the money if you get married? My guess is, I'm just going to throw a wild guess out, is you say that you can't afford marriage. Do you say that to people? You say it to him? Or he says it to you? And then you say? My what? The reason that I said that you probably make that excuse is because of what I've seen here. It's like I can't get married because I don't got because you're in this cycle and you see no way out of it. If you set your parents up with their own investments and stuff like that, and they're getting recurring income, and you had your paycheck, you could probably just get married like the next day. Okay, all right, yes. I'm happy, excited, yes. Okay, so the issue of how much my parents need, right? Because they just keep asking for more and more and more. And so now you feel like if I just kept giving them more and more money, they would just keep wanting more and more and more, right? Is that a reality or is that your belief? Okay, so my answer to you would be like to challenge that. That's just an assumption that you had. And I'm sure if your parents were here, I'm sure they'd be the sweetest people in the world. Right? And you would say, oh, your son thinks that you just keep wanting more and more and more and more money. And they're like, no, that's not the case. And you might see back to what I said, like your perception, be careful of it, because that's the whole world. And that's everybody's perception. If you actually bring up this issue with your parents, which I'm sure you've never done, but if you actually sat down and discussed with them and said to them, how much will satisfy you? They're like, what are you talking about?
I actually have them.
Oh, you have? And then what did they say?
Then they gave me a number. I matched that number. And then it ended up being the next paycheck. So I doubled that number.
And then? And now they're happy?
So we're still in this cycle.
And the cycle. Okay. Inshallah. All right. Do you guys do the activity? Did you do it, or do you still need to fill it up? What did you guys learn from what you wrote? Yes? Okay. The up and down, where the addiction comes from, the desire to get high intensity emotion, right? That's where the addiction comes from. So in the case with Ammar, it's going up and down. He gets highly addicted to giving them the cash. That's what he's addicted to, because it gives him such a high. Everything else is low, right? It's on the way down after he gives the money. But he's like, how do you get out of the pain? Just give them the money. How do you get out of the pain? Just give them the money. Just give them the money. And so then the person gets into this cycle. Yes, no? Okay, so as you're saying, maybe his parents want something else. So if you go back to those 6 needs, and do they want certainty? They might want love, right? And this is just their way of interpreting. My son, maybe they have examples in their belief systems back in Sudan or something like that. Children took care of the parents. So they want to tell their friends and family members that my son takes care of me too, so that they can go and show off. I mean, just giving examples there. Yeah? You don't agree, but yes? Has different belief systems like that? How do you take care of someone what? Okay, so we got even deeper there, right there, right? So to them, if you gave someone a hug, they'd be like, forget your hug, where's the money? Show me the money. Okay, but do they need the whole paycheck? Or do they just need some cash gifts occasionally? Do they actually need this money? No, I don't want the story. Just a straight out answers. They need the money. Okay, khair, then as a son, then you might actually need to take care of them. Regardless of what the emotional, whether they need it or stuff like that, you need to take care of your parents if you're the child and so on, you take care of them. And so if you need to get married as well, take care of both. You just bring in a wife into the picture and then, build up your financial, that 12 months thing that we were talking about, and inshallah ta'ala, there's enough for everybody. Bidnillah. Yes? How do you do it? You adopt an and policy. Remember the and or? Right? So a person says, should I take care of my parents' debt or should I build my business? Immediately, I couldn't see any contradiction between the two. So a person just basically says, I need to take care of my parents and get married and provide for my wife. I need to take care of my parents' debts and do this. And so once you start adopting and, you just make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, oh Allah, bless me to take care of my parents and bless me in this business that I'm building. Do you guys always have to tell your parents what you made? How many people have to do that? I was looking for a cultural connection, but I saw a little different cultural, but is it a Desi thing? Yeah. I'm sure it's a Sudanese thing as well, so we learned that as well. They don't know how you make. So I'm saying if they don't know how much you make, then you just give them a gift. So they don't know that your money's going up or you started a business. You're just giving them the same amount of money. And there shouldn't be a problem. And then you're telling it out of significance, aren't you? Would you agree? Okay. So you're going to your mom and you're showing off. It's like, look, Ma, I made $5,000. And she said, maybe you should put it towards this debt. You're like, oh. It backfired on me, shot myself in the foot. I was all significance based and she's looking at love, right? Yes. Should you leave it? Here's the thing. Oh, sure. When you see what you're dealing with, the brothers that saw it, whether you like it or not, this is your nature now. This is your pattern, okay? I would say, and I give you this analogy of like judo. In judo, a person, if they're like a huge big guy, tries punching you, if you try to basically stand in his way and like counter punch, you have to have all this effort from you just get crushed. So an easier way is that take all the momentum that he has and just take his arm and just throw him down on the ground from his own momentum. Okay? So now to this, if this is your momentum moving forward, I would say that look at it, find the positives, and play to your strengths. Okay? So it might be, for example, if this was, my pattern, it was like very heavily intense on taking care of my parents. Okay, that's what I want to do. Let me step back, read in the Quran, all the verses that speak about taking good care of parents, and I'm going to make my parents millionaires. And there will be enough to go around. That's already your nature to take care of them. And you want to take care of them, so you start taking care of them at a higher level. My parents are flying first class everywhere they go. And when they go back to Sudan, they can show off to all their family members that, my son rocks. 1, 2, 3, he rocks. And will that start giving you motivation? You're already doing it now, but now you're working to your strengths. And you start making money to provide for your parents. So I might say make money so that you can blah, 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 build a house and take care of your, and you're like, forget that. My parents are going to take it. So I would say my motivation now is I'm going to make money so I can take care of my parents. And making enough so that, there's enough for everyone. And there's a couple of people who have the parents thing, yeah? How many people got the parent issue? Parent issue. Okay. So just make them financially independent. Not only will I be independent, so will my parents. Inshallah ta'ala. And that'd be awesome. They'll make dua for you, and then you go to Jannah. The millionaire who went to Jannah. All right, moving along. The next one is, why am I broke even though I make $80,000 a year? Why am I broke even though I make $80,000 a year? Anybody like that? Make like 40, 50,000, they're broke? Yes? Other people, 100,000 and they're broke? Is anybody broke? That's like your financial identity? Okay? So broke is whatever you want it to be. I say broke, and what does that mean to you? Just raise your hand if you think it applies. Yes? Would that be you? Okay, but I thought we were good with the money management here. Okay. This topic came up because a brother was, he was mentioning, I was asking for feedback, and he said that, he's in debt, he's going paycheck to paycheck, and we've seen this attitude, and, paycheck to paycheck, he's broke, he needs money and assistance from everybody, and basically in the community, he's broke. When he filed his tax return and compiled all the sources of income that he had, he made $50,000 that year. And for some reason, that 50,000 number comes up repeated. A lot of people aim for it, yet at the end of the year, they're acting like, they're enslaved to the system, even though they make $50,000. Why is that the case? And that brings us to this topic here, is that where is your money being spent? And I would encourage you to do this activity. Some of you have already done it, and that is to calculate all your expenses for the next 7 days. How many people have done that? Anybody do it? Okay, we were doing it on the Discovery Life website, and some people kind of like volunteered to just write down their expenses. Did anybody learn something from what they wrote? They discovered things? Yes, Atiu? Okay, eating at random. The things that you did was at random. What about your financial spending? You were holding back. You're always like, we shouldn't buy this, we shouldn't buy that. Okay. Somebody else? Yes? Okay, significant percentage. Like your life is basically, the person who's broke, it's because they just have an eating outside habit. From the sisters? Any sisters did that activity? Writing down spending habits? Yeah. Like things at the checkout counter, and they have stuff at the checkout counter. And they do that on purpose, right? They're like, you never thought of buying this, and that's like the prime real estate spot in a supermarket. Yeah. And at a certain level, if it is eyesight level, the price increases, they will sell 5 times more based on where it is on the shelf. And they know that, and they charge premium prices to the companies based on what level it is, because you're unconsciously purchasing these things without even, there's no brain attached to it. You're just like a machine. Ching, 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 ching. Yes? When his wife goes spending, it's 3 times more. She has different, like, maybe prints out with the kids. Okay, they ask for things, and it's like, okay, Allah. It's okay, Allah. All right. When I did this activity, you know what? I'm financially, I'm all right, no problem, stuff like that. But I found myself, I'm supposed to be making money, but there's no money left. And then when I went back and reviewed it, and this is something, there's some Al-Maghrib instructors here, the number one expense I had was unclaimed reimbursements. Unclaimed reimbursements. That's me traveling to a city and, I pay for parking. And I'll eat out from there or pay for this. And there's like, okay, inshallah, bismillah, it's okay, it's okay. And then when I calculate over the year, like every month, maybe $500 to $1,000 that it comes out to. Those things start piling up. So whenever I go to a new Al-Maghrib city, now that I learned that lesson, I'm like broke because, it's like a person on a diet, they'll like, I won't count this cookie that I'm eating. What do you mean you won't count it? Who are you to count or not count? The body doesn't understand that. It's a calorie. You can't skip counting those things. And same thing with money. You can't just pretend like you didn't spend that money. It was spent. So when I go, for example, to the UK, I sit down all the volunteers and tell everybody, listen, Al-Maghrib does not need you to take on the expenses of the whole institute on your back. You think you're doing it for the sake of Allah, but basically you're just lazy to fill out the reimbursement slips, right? Then when it just comes down to it, you don't have financial management skills, now it's coming to, and you're like, Bismillah, it's okay, I won't take any reimbursements, which is kind of like a UK thing. Would you agree? UK, they don't ask, if you give, if you've done something for a Dawah organization, you don't ask for money back. It's like, what, it's okay, inshallah ta'ala. But what happens is the person gets eaten alive. And then they have to quit their dawah activities because they just weren't honest and just said, look, and nobody asked them to pay that. Just look, here's a check and, here's a receipt, and then you just get your check back. That was a realization for me, and now I basically get reimbursed on everything. I'm talking, if I just blink my eye and it costs me $2, I'll take the receipt. I'm like, look, reimburse me, right? It all gets reimbursed, and alhamdulillah, now there's no issue. And nobody has an issue with it. It's not a big deal, inshallah ta'ala. Okay. What I want you to do now, yeah. Yes. It's right in front of me right here. That's exactly what I'm going to talk about. I was opening my pen to write that down. Okay, I'm going to talk about it. This is how it works in our lifestyle. In the olden days, when I was younger and Sheikh would talk to us and stuff like that, they'd say like how the Muslim world has such raw material, and the West took that raw material, made things like cars, made things like they manufactured stuff, and they sent it back to the Muslim countries. Such as if you look at the Arabic language, I was in an English class, right, teaching English to Arab kids, and I told them what words have come in English from the Arabic language. And the kids went through, kimia, physia, al-jabr, as-sabun, right? So you go there like, wow, these are really nice things, right? And then I said, just for sake of argument, what Arabic words come from the English? And then you say, at-tilfizyon, ad-dush, right? Al-mobile, right? So then I'm like, okay, now I understand what took place. Maybe 20 years, the last 20 years, it was just summarized in that lesson right there. That they took al-jabr, al-kimya, al-physia, they turned it into al-mobile, al-tilfon, and so on. And then the Muslims became the consumers. Okay? That was the olden days. Then something happened to the Americans. They became wealthy. And then they became consumers. Who have now become the manufacturers? Chinese, that's right. And life is shifting. They become consumers, houses they can't pay for, cars that they can't pay for, unions now, let's maintain our lifestyle certainty, and they just went hammered on that. So for every $100 that American makes, they spend, actually for Canadians I know, it's like $130. $130 for how much hundreds they make. For Americans, I think it's something like 120 or 125. I'm sure it's gone up. And when you think, like, for every 100 they make, they spend $130. How is that possible? If you look at what they're doing with their houses, as soon as someone gets a paycheck, the whole concept is, how much can I put down as a down payment on my house? Meaning that they want to spend more than they actually make. And their source of income is only one. With that one paycheck, there's no other income coming in, and taxes are going out from that. All these things are eating alive at it, and they look at the down payment, and they just kind of like generalize, and then they get eaten alive. How long will it take before this guy is buried to death? They're killing themselves softly, correct? There comes a time where basically China says, give us our money back. Like, well, we'll need to go to war at that point. Because this is the system as well, spending what they don't earn, and then when they let's put in $1 trillion. Like, where are you going to get that money from? Yeah, the next generation, they're going to get it from you in taxes and all of these things, whatever they're going to get it from, but they're getting into debt. It's the national system. It's what the governments do. It's what their citizens do. And then you look at the banks. What does a bank do? Bank, you put in $100 into the bank. How much does it loan out? Yeah, it loans out 1,000, which is money that it doesn't have. If everybody just said, you know what, this is just a big fake system, people just are spending money that they don't have, and everybody's like passing the buck to somebody else, at some point someone's going to say, I want to be paid in gold. And then they're like, wait a second, there is no gold. It's just this paper. So when I was telling you before that it's just paper, now it really is just paper. All you need is like the Russian ruble to give you like a little wake-up call. And you realize how paper and how cheap it is. When you go to a store with the Canadian dollar in the US, they're like, I don't accept that. That's just paper, colored paper to me. Anybody had that experience, going somewhere with a bill that nobody accepted? The Canadian dollars, that happens to us, right? When you go with Canadian dollars. They just don't accept it. When you get paid in pounds? British pounds? $100 bill that nobody accepts. They're like, we only accept 20s. And like, I can't spend a $100 bill anywhere. And nobody will accept it. Unless you buy something like really big. And it becomes like worthless. Okay. So if a person is spending more, if, as they say, if you find yourself in a hole, then stop digging. If you find yourself in a hole, then stop digging. The way to get out of this is you've got to stop the poison. A step number one is you've got to look at where is your money slipping out. And you've got to close those pockets. There was this person, I once saw him in Medina. You know how they wear like these gas masks, these surgical masks in Hajj time? This guy's walking around in Medina like, oh, we're all disease infected, and he's the one who's trying to save himself. And then I saw him walking, and then he pulls the surgical mask off, pulls out a cigarette, and then he starts smoking. And then he puts the mask back on. It was like the biggest, you know, like, what are you actually trying to protect yourself from? Now, the question is for us, in order to start filling in your pockets and your buckets, you have to make sure there's no hole in it. So the first thing is finding out money slipping out. Inshallah ta'ala, this activity. Why am I broke even though I make $80,000 a year? I want you to go through the activity and write down all your monthly expenses. So as it says there in the activity, it says monthly total, the gross earnings that you make for the month. So let's say you make a paycheck, $2,000, $5,000, $500, whatever it is. Write down how much you make for the month and take 1/3 away from that. That's going to be your tax withholding. Right? So they take taxes away from your paycheck. You guys know that, right? Take money away from you. 1/3 of your money is gone. I remember the tax people, I put this thing through. It was like $2,000. They rejected it. They say, no, you have to pay this in taxes. Send us 1,000. Like, what the heck? Like, that's half of it. They just said, just send it to us. And put some riba on top of it because you took long. All right, so you're going to put your monthly total, 1/3 taken away from that spendable income for the month, write down that number, and then go through this whole list, whether it applies to you or not, how much is like a rent payment or a mortgage, halal mortgage, inshallah ta'ala, electricity every month, how much is gas, and go through it, and at the end, write down that how much you would need for the month, and then write down how much you need for the year. All right, start doing that. And as well, you might want to put in some arbitrary purchases that happened throughout the year. For example, if you've purchased like a sofa that was $1,200, that's $100 per month. You want to add that. If you ate out at a restaurant with some people you paid for and it was $120, that's a $10 monthly plan for the entire year. How many times do you eat out? How many times do you purchase things like that? So you need to calculate that in as well, inshallah. All right, so let's do it. Seems like your dad is your financial consultant, right? He's always back to Amma, right? When's the next paycheck coming? Okay, so yeah. So you need both, right? Remember when we were talking about swimming and treading? You were saying treading and you weren't going to swim, and you even you're the one who explained it, that you would not swim forward. And what you just explained with your financial okay, what you said, I can't even swim that far. Okay, no problem. You said that, and now your financial management is explaining exactly that, which is, breaking even, maybe doing a little treading and stuff like that, keeping abreast of what the new technology, you're treading, but you're not swimming forward necessarily. And then even the advice that your dad's giving is like, well, when are you going to start implementing? And actually, that's an issue that I've heard here as well. People start using education as an excuse to actually implement. So right before they're about to implement something, someone else comes up with a new course, and they're like, oh, I want to take that too. But they haven't implemented the previous one. Right? And another course comes along, and they're like, oh, I want to study that too, and here's a new technology. So they go from course to course, spending, spending, spending. They're not actually implementing what they learn. Because there's a topic that's coming up called the flow-through factor, that in the beginning stages of your business, if you hoarded the money, you would actually stunt your business. Kind of like one brother was talking earlier about how he has amount of money, but he's too afraid to do anything with it. That has stunted the business. The business is not moving forward. Now your business is growing, and the money keeps flowing through. And someone told you that in order for you to be successful, you have to stop the flow of money. And I'm saying, no, not necessarily. In fact, in the beginning stages, you need to let the money flow and be willing to risk it, to go out and bring in more money, and then that's how it will grow, in fact. Holding it will make it, make the growth stop. Allah. But again, that's something, take it with a grain of salt and understand it in the full picture, inshallah ta'ala. Someone else, something that you learned from this activity? Yes? And the excitement of the challenge ahead. So in the beginning you were saying, oh, I'm bored with money. Now you're like, man, I better start getting excited right now before these, times change. It's good. I think, as we've gone through this day, everybody's just gotten more humbled. Would you agree? It's like at first it's all jolly, stuff like that. There's no money issues. Nobody has and now it's like, man, we got some serious stuff going on. And it just keeps getting better and better. That's right.